Good evening from South Africa and welcome to episode 56 of Velospitty Speed Talk. Our episode this evening is called HardCor Mac Attack, and the Core and Mac make up the name of our guest, Cormac Buchanan from New Zealand, but sitting in Spain right now. Cormac, kia ora. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, before we get cracking, Cormac, we've had a quite a busy racing weekend, and of course we had the MotoGP in Spain, and of course also the first round of the Red Bull Rookies Cup, which is of interest to us as a youth-oriented group. And in the Rookies Cup, we had a debutant winner, a guy that won a race on his first outing. Marco Morelli from Argentina, which I think is also the first Argentinian to win it. Did you follow the race, and what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, obviously, having been in Rookies Cup the past few years, it was a bit different watching it for the first time. And of course, I know Marco personally from racing in the Junior GP paddock, so I guess you could say I was rooting for him a little bit as well. But yeah, the racing this weekend was awesome. I think having the Pirelli tyres also adds a different complexity to it. It makes the racing a bit more tense in those last laps. But yeah, it was great racing to watch, as much as I wanted to be out there. But having been a rookie the past few years and knowing what it's like being on that grid, it was it was a different experience to watch it for sure.
Yeah, and of course you mentioned the Pirellis. It's like you say, it adds something different. But I see they said that the lap records were flying. So obviously the Pirellis give maybe superior grip in when they on it, but maybe they go off it quicker. Now, just an interesting aside on the story of Marco, and you say you know him personally. His catchphrase is "No Plan B." And I think it's a beautiful story, because he didn't race for a year and had pretty much almost given up hope, I think. And this was literally his last chance saloon, the chance that he got now to Rookies Cup and also to European Talent Cup. And he certainly grasped it with both hands, would you say?
Yeah, I think knowing Marco and how much of a talent he is, having ridden with him before as well, it's I always knew that he's one of the fastest. He's got a lot of talent, and you just have to watch the race in the weekend, just how he can manage the races, and even looking back to Mazzano, the way that he managed those races in the Talent Cup. So, you also just have to look at the guys he was battling with before he had that, big break. He was there with Piqueras, all of those guys who are now in World Championships. So that's definitely something that, people need to look at and see, this guy is actually really fast. So, and it was really nice to see, him finally get that first win and stuff. And I'm as a guy that knows him, he definitely deserves it for sure.
Yeah, and in fact, there were two Argentinians on the podium in the first race. So there's definitely history being made. Now you speak about Rookies Cup guys and the GPs. Of course, many of the alumni of the Rookies Cup are GP winners and GP and MotoGP. Gone on to MotoGP wins and world titles in the various classes. Brad Binder is one of them, and there are many others that we can mention. And one of your antipodian friends, Jacob Ralston, is also a former rookie and European Talent Cup and Junior GP or those days Repsol CV rider, who's now cracking on very well in the GPs. But we're focusing today on the red Southern Cross, not the white Southern Cross, which is the New Zealand one. All right, now you are now in your second year in the Junior GP. Yep. Having gone through the things, and of course you shot to massive prominence at the opening round. Speaking of opening round successes, with your podium at the opening round. First race a little bit of misfortune, but second race you certainly fixed that up. So how do you look back on that event?
Yeah, I think obviously being the first weekend, there's a lot of unknowns with it. It's obviously the first round. Everyone wants to do the best that they can. So I think the whole weekend, the biggest thing for me was just keeping a level head. Obviously, we had a pretty good preseason with all the testing and stuff, so it was almost like me and the team, we knew we could do a good job. It was just staying grounded, being focused on our job. And yeah, I knew that I made a big step from the year before, but it's in the first race I didn't really get to show it. We had a few problems, and which unfortunately ended up in a DNF as well, which wasn't ideal. But that's the good thing with Junior GP. Sometimes, well, for select rounds, you'd have 2 races over one. So luckily that it was the case in Misano, and it worked out pretty good in the second one. So having my previous best finish, like 4th, I arrived to the last corners in 4th place. I'm like, I'm not finishing 4th again. I can't go through that heartbreak. So to stand on the podium, to be the first Kiwi on that podium was pretty cool, and to know that they've actually had a New Zealand flag in the locker for obviously the flags above the podium was pretty cool. But I did notice it had a few creases in it, so obviously it hasn't been brought out in a very long time. But it was such a cool way to start the season for sure.
I love that you said that, the few creases, because I know, I mean, there's a lot of history of good racing top level talent, but particularly so from Australia. And I think I read in one of the things that you wrote or somewhere that the last New Zealander to win a GP level at 500 GP level was Graham Crosby, if I'm not mistaken. Or but it's pulling back to 1982. But we had, of course, subsequent to that, people like Aaron Slight and so on. But certainly you, the new blood, and New Zealand is due for some results, and I'm not referring to the rugby here. This is just purely racing. All right. So right now, speaking of New Zealand and Australia, I went through the history, and I saw when you started out, you actually went across to Australia. You raced a one-make series there, which is, I mean, it's not Red Bull Rookies Cup, but one-make series certainly sifts the talent through, because everybody's on identical bikes. So tell us about those early days and the forays into Australia.
Yeah, my first seasons racing road bikes was in Australia, because I was actually too young to race in New Zealand, my home country. So we made the decision to go race in Australia in the series called the Oceania Junior Cup. So that had guys like Jacob Ralston, Carter Thompson, who's in the Rookies Cup, as well as Angus Grinfell, who's in Junior GP. So there's lots of guys who are now racing in Europe in that series. But that was it was almost chucking myself into the deep end. It was my first race was in a completely different country. Okay, I know the language, but up against these guys who have been racing road bikes for a while now. I threw myself into the deep end a bit, but I think in a way that was almost the right thing to do. It was good, learning straight away that this is how you need to race. This is how you need to be aggressive and stuff. So I learned loads in that first year, obviously being a one-make series, everyone's on the same machinery. So it was, it was difficult at first, just trying to understand it, trying to know how to tuck properly. I remember race shift, obviously it's different to, normal shifting on a road bike. And I was going down the straight at Phillip Island, and being a kid who's ridden motocross bikes, pretty much all his life, I shifted the wrong way when I was, 6th gear going down the straight at Phillip Island, and clicked the bike from 6th to 5th gear down the main straight. So there's all sorts of little things that I had to learn, looking back on it, racing now on the Junior World Championship. It's like, how did you do that? Like, come on, that stuff's easy. But for me, I think that shaped me into the rider I am today in so many different levels. And even that first year being my first year of road racing, it still was a really solid year. I mean, getting front rows, I think a top 5 was my best result. So for a first year of road racing, for me, that was, definitely probably the best way that I could start my career.
All right. Well, you with that misshift, I think your mechanic is still looking for the valves that were spread all over the infield. But in any case, and you said you talk about throwing yourself into the deep end, and we're going to revisit that theme in a bit with your foray into Europe, because that's not just an easy swim away, and it's this is a serious commitment that you guys have made. Now, before we go ahead with that, I spoke to Mom earlier, and she said, hang on, let's see if there's some comments coming in. FIM Finger Red, number 1, Rudy Willifee. That's an old friend of mine. This is an interesting story. Just on a personal note, this was my best friend at primary school. Now, as you can see, that was more than 5 years ago. My best friend at primary school, which was in 1970-ish. And we lost contact, and we picked up contact again about a few weeks ago through a shared music site that we are members of in South Africa. So how interesting is that story? But in any case, back to your story. I spoke to Mom. I said, man, I've got a good surprise up for you. And she said, well, it better involve puppies, because she wants a puppy. I said, okay. I said, well, it does involve puppies of sorts. So let's have a squiz at that. And you can give me you can unpack it for me afterwards. So just have a look at this.
Yeah, that's
There you go.
That's awesome.
You enjoyed it?
For sure. That was, a bit nostalgic. Obviously, lots of clips from a very long time ago. Also, some clips with different hair color as well.
Yeah,
that's cool. It obviously shows the path to, I guess you could say, my career, all in one video,
right.
really. So
Yeah, I dug some of those things out. When I did a similar video for Maximo, he said he didn't even know about the existence of some of the clips that I made. But now, I looked back through the stuff in your old interviews and so on, and it said that you guys were on a farm or whatever. But like you said about a Rockers Ranch, there were a lot of facilities close by, and a piggy that was very, very photogenic. So tell us about that venue, and is that where you actually grew up and had access to all these facilities to ride?
I guess when my career really, I guess you could say, kickstarted, and motorcycling or motorbiking in general was something that I really wanted to do. That's when we moved onto a farm when I was 6. And obviously Dad, he used to race bikes. He was always into motorcycles and stuff. And so was my grandfather, and they're always into racing. So it was almost kind of, a Buchanan thing. But living on the farm was, in a way, a really good advantage for me because obviously dirt biking and stuff like that, that's a really good source of training for us. So I had that. We could make our own motocross tracks in the paddock, as you saw in the video. And then also where I live in Invercargill is Burt Munro country. So having, the speedway track where I used to race, the motorcycle and car racing track, a car track, a motocross track. It's where I live is really, it's the perfect place to be for me. Obviously you lack, I guess you could say another way is, you know, the competition and that almost that competitiveness that you have here in Spain. But for me, living, you know, in New Zealand in general, especially in the Cargill, with, you know, a place in New Zealand that's, you know, really famous for Burt Munro. I think that was probably one of the big things, and that helps me so much because, we get, you know, thousands of people every year come to the Cargill to watch the Burt Munro Challenge and stuff like that. So I think it was, a really cool place for me to grow up and learn my trade on a motorbike.
Yeah, you mentioned the Burt Munro Challenge, and I saw a lot of photos of you with great success, and I think you were one of the awardees or multiple times. Now let's stay at home for a short while. First, you have numerous New Zealand titles, and twice in succession the 600 Super Sport title, and I think the one year you doubled it up with a 300 Super Sport title as well. So just run us through the last 2 years of your local achievements there, because the season there happens when most people are preparing for Christmas. I saw like December, January, and going into March, right?
Yeah. Obviously, being that far away from everyone else and being on the opposite side of the world, when everyone's here, you know, cuddling around a fire, you know, having hot chocolate for Christmas, we're, you know, having, you know, hot dogs and stuff like that over a barbecue. You know, we're having steaks and stuff for Christmas, summertime. So that's where our race season is. That's when we have our season in New Zealand. So it's almost like I don't actually go out of a race season very much. I don't have a break. It's a taxing job, but it's pretty cool. You know, I come from a season here in Europe, and I get to, you know, put everything that I've learned, and I get to put it into my racecraft in New Zealand. So it's almost like a really good training. But the last 2 years, in 2023, I debuted on the 600 for the first time. And managed to wrap that title up for my rookie season, which was a really cool experience. And obviously, doing that in New Zealand's different to here in Spain. Of course, the level here in Spain is so much higher, but everything that I achieve in New Zealand can give you confidence and give you, you know, it's almost like training for Spain. So having that in New Zealand was really good, you know, going off the back of a title, 2 titles, the 300 Supersport title as well. And I know 300 Supersport racing's, you know, real close racing and stuff, but in New Zealand, it was really just me and another guy, Jesse Stroud, another Kiwi. And, you know, we were great. We were having, you know, bumper to bumper battles. I don't know if anyone saw the Racing and Rookies Cup, but it was like that, you know, just races like that, just me and him. So that was great. And then obviously this year, I was racing again the 600 and managed to wrap that title up as well, which was a really cool feeling. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, you had a bit of drama in regaining your title, because I think you had a DQ in one of the races. Because I followed. So what happened there? Because you said you're gonna just shut that out and focus on the next races of the weekend, and you turned it around. So what happened at that event?
Yeah, so I got 2 disqualifications in the New Zealand Superbike Championship this year. One of them was for a overtake. Being from Europe and racing in, obviously, you know, the Junior GP and stuff, you're used to making contact and making really aggressive moves. So they deemed that the move was, you know, wasn't a correct move, so I got disqualified for it. I mean, obviously, I don't agree with it, but it's whatever. I'll move on from that. But then the next one was more of an interesting one. We went out for a wet race, and this weekend I was actually on for the brink of the title. I could wrap it up effectively that day if I had won the race or finished on the podium and stuff like that. So we went out, I raced, and it was wet. So I was like, right, okay, I can win the title later in the weekend. It's all good. Just finish this race, get some points. And I came home in 3rd position, just consolidated. And then I come in and I have marshals there telling me you've been disqualified. And I'm like, what do you mean? What for? And it turns out the transponder, the timing device that we have on our bikes, hadn't been strapped to my bike. So Dad, he felt pretty stink about that. It was just a little human error. Even though they were tracking me around the whole lap, and I mean, the guys in 4th, they finished 20 seconds behind me. So it was quite a clear 3rd place. But luckily we managed to win the title that weekend even after that. So I've had my fair share of moments, shall you say, in New Zealand. It's pretty drama filled, but I guess that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, so it's a technical DQ now. Now, if you spin the clock back some years, Brad Binder had a technical, not a DQ, but he got put when he was still on in Moto3. He got put on the back of the grid because of something that his team had done. He was unaware. I forget exactly what it was. And he came, I think it was at Jerez. I'm not altogether sure, but he came from the back of the grid and he won the race.
Yeah.
And I said that day, I said, Brad Binder won the world title today, because in his head there was nothing, much the same as Pedro Acosta that won the race from the pit lane, and by the way, what a season this guy's having at 19 years of age. It's like up until today. He came into today's race second in the championship, but he's still up there. And it's amazing how the mood shift is, because coming into the season, people were saying, oh, you would be lucky to get a top 10. And then today got the top 10 and people say, oh, it's like disappointing, you should be on the podium. So that's how the mood shift goes. All right, we've taken care of the New Zealand story. Then the big decision came that you will now pack your canoe and head up for Europe, to Spain, which is the base of road racing. So how did that idea come about, and what went into making it happen? Because you also made your way then into the Red Bull Rookies Cup from very far away. So you had to go to a selection event and everything. So take us through that story, how this all happened.
Yeah, so in 2019, in my first year of road racing, when I was still racing in Australia, I was selected to go to the Red Bull Rookie Cup selection event in Guadix. So obviously that was crazy. I had guys like Izan Guevara, obviously Moto3 world champion, Alex Mian, Munoz, all of these guys, they were in my group. So these are guys who at the time I didn't actually know who they were, but looking back, I'm like, these guys are top level here in Spain, and if not in the world, in the junior ranks. So I went there, and it was a real eye opener for me. I was nowhere near the quickest, but the main thing is that I kept improving every session, and their goal going into it was, okay, if you get selected, that's awesome, but the goal was to make it to the third day. So we made it to the third day. We didn't get selected in that first time, but we made it to the third day, which was our goal. And we're like, this could be a possibility. Let's just keep working at it. We'll train, we'll come back harder in 2020. So unfortunately, obviously that didn't go to plan, because 2020, obviously COVID hit. So that really stalled anything that we had going for us going into Europe. The goal was to go back there and, obviously race and stuff. So in 2020, all I had was the New Zealand season, which also got cut short. So I had 3 rounds of racing in 2020. So that wasn't very much racing, but for me, it was almost like a time to just train hard, show everyone how hard you're working and stuff. And we put in this application for the Red Bull Rookie Cup, because obviously they couldn't go do a selection event because of COVID. So we're like, right, we might as well try. They've seen me ride before. Fingers crossed that, we can get selected. And to be honest, I wasn't too hopeful. Obviously, you have all the Spaniards and Italians, those guys who are, they're crazy quick. So I'm like, right, okay, if we get selected, that'd be insane. So I remember it very clearly. I was asleep. It was probably midnight, because obviously the time difference, and they had announced it. And I remember mum and dad and my coach at the time waking me up and saying, hey mate, guess what? And I'm like, what? And they're like, you've made it into Rookies Cup. And I'm like, what? And I remember I did not sleep that night. I was on my phone messaging all my friends, guys, I just got into Red Bull Rookie Cup, because I had non-stop talking about it. I'm like, guys, Red Bull Rookie Cup, look, because the season had finished. I'm like, this racing is crazy. I was showing all my friends all the races. I'm like, I reckon I could be racing this, fingers crossed and stuff. And it finally happened. So, and then from there, everything it just sped up. It's like, right, we've actually got to move to Europe now, and all that. So, me and Dad, we had to go to Europe. We had to pack our bags. Mum and my sister Mika, they had to stay at home, and so did all the dogs and cats and stuff. But me and Dad, we pretty much lived out of a motorhome for 2021, my first year of Red Bull Rookie Cup. And to be honest, to put it bluntly, I got smoked really badly. I think the furthest I finished from the winner was nearly 2 minutes behind. I think it was Munoz or Hogado or someone like that. But yeah, that first year was I wouldn't say a kick in the guts, but it was like, right, if you want to make this happen, this is the level you need to be at. So yeah, that first year and everything that happened there was a real eye opener for me, and it really prepared me, saying, right, okay, you know what you need to do now. It's right there. I got another year of Rookies Cup, even though I didn't score any points. I was the only one who didn't score a point in that season. They obviously seen something in me, Danny Ribalta and Gusto and the whole Red Rookie Cup staff. They saw something in me, and the big thing for me was just keep improving, and that's what happened. Every round I had a goal, and I made sure that I achieved that goal, if not improved it, and that's what happened race by race. And that was the best thing I could do. I knew I wasn't going to be going in there, challenging top tens and fighting for the wins after testing. I'm like, right, okay, I know this is going to be a hard year, but I just need to, buckle down and grit my teeth and get through it. And I came home, and honestly, other than me changing my hair color to blonde hair, it was like, 2022 versus 2021 Cormac. They are two completely different people. The amount of sacrifice I put into training, I remember Dad saying to me very clearly, if you want this, you have to live and breathe racing. And that's what I did. I just lived and breathed racing, and it's honestly hasn't stopped since then. 2022, I remember I came to the first test like, right, new and improved Cormac, I'm ready to go. It'll be difficult. I know it won't be easy, but I'll just do my best, and hopefully, we can finish in the points or something like that every race, or we'll try our best. And I remember the first day I was sixth, and I'm like, hang on, something's not right here. I know I've improved a lot and stuff, but that whole season was it was a roller coaster at times. But to get points pretty much every race, to be fighting in that, not quite in the front group in that podium fight, but to make such a big step from going from dead last to consistent points finisher, sometimes in the top 10, that was the improvement that I needed to do. And so then I got a third year, obviously last year, and also with that, that was my first year living full-time in Spain, because in 2021, obviously me and Dad were living at a motorhome and we had to live in the UK. But 2022, it was my first time living in Spain. So, I had all that training that I could do with, all my teammates, all the other junior GP riders, which was the series I was racing in as well. And, I think that's also helped so much, just being involved in that environment, because it's just such a competitive environment. Everywhere you go, there's races that are pushing you along. So for me, that was the turning point. And then obviously last year was my last year in Rookies Cup, the third year. And that was also another really good year. We were in that front battle. It was just, I think, through lack of consistency that we didn't get the end season result that we wanted. But, I led my first race in the dry. I was, in the top 5 a lot in the sessions. I think my best result was in Le Mans, and, always in that front group. And it was actually the very last race of the season where I had my closest to the winner gap. I can't remember the exact gap, but I do remember the last race was the closest I was to winning a race. So, those 3 years in the Red Rookie Cup, they were probably the most beneficial years I've ever had. You learn so much from being in such a competitive environment like that. The One Make Series, you got guys like Maximo Quiles, Rico Salmela, Angel Bequeras, Rueda, Colin Vire, all those guys when I was in there. And my first year, you rock up to the track, you come from New Zealand where you're winning everything, and then you're brought back down to reality when you got guys like Danny Holgado, Alonso Munoz, all those guys there. So, those 3 years were shaped me into the guy I am today, for sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you mentioned you've covered quite a lot of ground here, and I love an interview like you, because I can fire off the shot and then go and make some tea, and you'll handle the rest of the interview, and that's great. Now, you mentioned a couple of things. Of course, you mentioned some big names, Alonso, Holgado. These are the two leading protagonists in Moto3 World Championships right now, and pity for Alonso, who crashed today from the lead, and I think it was his 18th birthday this week in any case. So he didn't give himself the best present, but in any case, and he was gutted after the race. You could see that. and guys like Maximo and Enrico Salmello, but whom I both have had interactions with. Rico, I actually invited him and his dad to the junior motocross junior world championships in Finland, because I took some riders from South Africa, and I've worked with a lot of riders from Estonia for a long time. So here's me coming from South Africa, inviting 2 Finnish guys to a Finnish race. But anyhow, that's just how it works. Now, you talk about the kick in the guts, and I've said that to South African motocrossers going overseas, and I don't mean it in a derogatory fashion. I've got respect for every racer. You know, everybody that gets on a bike is better than me. But I mean it with respect and in a constructive manner. And I said, you go overseas, and you imagine the fastest guy in South Africa in your class. You're going to go to a track that you've never heard of, and there's going to be 40 guys that's like that, right? And then you're going to go to a next other track, and there's going to be 40 different guys that's like that, you know. And when you get to world or European championship level in motocross, the ladder is insanely steep that you have to climb to get. And honestly, hats off to you to do that, because you know, for doing that, because many riders come and they see how steep the wall is, and it breaks their heart, you know, and especially for guys like you, it's a huge logistical thing. You know, you have to come from far away and in a completely different set of circumstances. It's a huge financial burden. Like Jacob Ralston that we mentioned before, you stay there with your mom, the family is split up. You know, it's a huge sacrifice, and I always hope that such stories turn out well for Jacob. And for you, it's turning out Jacob is really becoming one of the top Moto3 protagonists. And I've got no doubt in saying that I'll see you in the same position when you age into Moto3. Now, you've spoken about, you've touched upon the Junior GP, which is the parallel series to Red Bull Rookies Cup, of course, a one-make series. Junior GP that's Paka Moto3 stuff, but at a very high level. It's been proven over and over again that a junior GP guy, when he's at the top of his game, can go to Moto3 and mix it with the guys. So what is your experience of the level in junior GP, and what's the differentiation in the bikes between Red Bull Rookies Cup and Junior GP? Because you've ridden both, or sometimes on successive weekends.
Yeah, I think the big I guess differences between Junior GP and Rookies Cup is the Rookies bike is a great bike, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot older, whereas the Junior GP bike is, you know, pretty not brand new, but top of the line, you know, Moto freestyle bike. So obviously bikes develop, as you see in MotoGP and now in Moto3 as well. You know, the bikes, they're always changing. Everyone's trying to find that little extra bit. So that's the thing in Junior GP, you know, everyone's on the new machinery. You know, the bikes, you know, they're just, in a way, they're just better. You know, you got the electronics, you know, all the suspension, you know, the engine, exhaust, everything is just different. And that's the big thing that people don't tend to realize about the differences with Rookies Cup and Junior GP. And I think, in a way, it's difficult to kind of manage that when you're a rider who does both. I found it extremely difficult, you know, in 2022 to, you know, switch between those two bikes, trying to, you know, figure out, you know, you almost kind of like one bike more, which isn't good because, you know, you arrive to the other bike and you're like, right, I don't like this bike as much as, you know, this one. So, you know, the weekend's already finished before it's even started. So in that sense, that was very difficult. But then as time goes on, you understand how you need to ride each bike differently. Because, I mean, the Rookies Cup bike, they're a great bike. They're a Moto3 bike, but they don't have, you know, slipper clutches. So you have to downshift differently. You know, you have to be careful with the engine revs. They're not as fast in a straight line. So you have to, that was another big thing for me. I'm one of the taller riders. So, you know, I had to really watch my weight when I was in Rookies Cup because I'm up against guys like Maximo and Rico, who at the time were, you know, the smallest guys I've ever seen in my whole life. So, whereas in Junior GP, you're on a more powerful bike, so it can almost pull that extra weight. But don't get me wrong, you still have to be a lightweight. You're a Moto3 rider. But yeah, that was the big thing, I think, just trying to switch between the two bikes and the differentials between them. And then obviously the level in Rookies Cup is, they're the world's best young riders. And then Junior GP, it's just, more of them, it's incredible, the Junior GP. The level this year is really high. Obviously with Maximo and Rico and those guys coming in as rookies. You say they're rookies, but they're not rookies, they're just as good as any of us on the grid. So it's going to make for an interesting season. But I think having that rookie season out of the way, having experienced, front rows, being in the front group, having experienced the big crashes, not just, tucking the front or having a little slip on the rear, the big ones, the ones that make you realize, right, is this really, worth it? But, I think as a racer, that's what you have to experience. And, I think this year is going to be an interesting year with Junior GP. And, I mean, as you said, you look at guys like Piqueras, those guys who win in Junior GP, they go to World Championship and they're there straight away. So it's, I mean, Alonso, I think, won only one Junior GP race, but you look at him in World Championship and he won, 3 on the bounce last season. So, yeah. Oh, I think it's muted.
Sorry, yeah, I muted it because I've got the parrot on the side who loves to participate in the conversation. I'm saying, speaking of the Junior GP, we've had, and speaking from the South African point of view, also Roche Moodley, who had our eyes going outside of our glasses with his first round. Unfortunately, he skittled Rico in the first heat, and Rico skittled him accidentally in the second heat when Roche was serving his long lap penalty. So that is one of the 2 comedy moments of the year so far. The other one being at Kota with the Moto3, where the guy tried to get onto the wrong bike after the crash. That was one for the books. It couldn't have been scripted better. All right, now you mentioned all of that, and we all know that the level of this is extremely, extremely high, and to do that you need a proper professional team behind you. This is not play. This is serious racing with serious budgets. So firstly, tell us a little bit about your team, and then I know the one that's a huge heartache is always finding the budget to do it. So take us through those stories. What is the team like, and how do you budget to do all that you need to do?
Yeah, so for me, the last 2 seasons I've been with AGR Racing. So they have Moto3 team, they have a ETC European Talent Cup team, as well as a Moto2 team. So that's been a great environment. I mean, guys like Colin Vire, they've come through that. So it's a great team for me. But you have like Aspar, teams who are in World Championship are the fastest, and you have Monlau, which is one of the most prestigious teams in all of racing. Fabio Quartararo, Rins, all those guys, they've raced for them. So it's when you walk into the paddock, you have all the semi trucks and everything. It's almost like you're in the MotoGP paddock, but you're not. Even the teams that I don't know how you'd say it, but even the teams that aren't as well known, they've still got the big semi trucks. So obviously you need to have a crazy big budget for it, and that's just even to get there, let alone be one of the top teams. But yeah, as a racer, especially one coming from New Zealand, I think the budget's probably one of the hardest things. The exchange rate doesn't help either, but I mean, yeah, you have to fork out a lot of money to race. It's just the way it is. I'm a rider making sacrifices, sacrificing my childhood to, train to prepare the best and be the best rider I can be, but also my family sacrificing so much to, just get me here to Europe. I remember one thing my dad said when he got me my first ever road bike. He said, "Look, here you go. Now let's see what you can do with it." So it's almost like he's saying, right, we'll look after this. You just need to get on and do your job. And that's what I keep telling myself. I'm trying to just tell myself, look, it's just another day at work. I try to take all that budget stuff and put it to the side. You know, I've got really supportive family, and they take care of that. They, you know, try and, you know, keep that out of my mind, because obviously it's not something you want to be thinking about too often. But you know, there's been talks of like mortgaging the house just to, you know, even just fund it. You know, it's the level you need to be at. You know, that sacrifice and that level of commitment is just, yeah, it shows, you know, it just shows how cutthroat the sport is. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. Obviously, you don't like it, but it's, yeah, as I said, it's just the way it is, you know, and it's always going to be like that. I mean, you look at MotoGP, it's the Formula One of motorcycling. So yeah, it's, I hope to get to the one. I've got a long list of debt to pay back to my parents. So hopefully when I make MotoGP, I can pay that back. And yeah.
Well, you know, you mentioned that, and there are two stories. We spoke earlier about the Argentinian rider, and also Pedro Acosta. I mean, they come from modest roots, and I remember in my own experience, where you said your parents take care of that, and you don't have to worry about that. Now, Tyler Rattray was a South African motocross rider that I took to Europe. And that's what made me decide to start a World Championship motocross team, was around Tyler, because we took him to the Junior Worlds, had no idea of where we would figure. No, we haven't had the foggiest clue of where we would figure in the. Oh, I've got a husky. Talk about puppies. I've got a husky who's up for a snack. So we didn't have the foggiest clue where he would figure. And then we went to the Junior World Championships in Germany, and he finished third. And then obviously we knew we had something on our hands. And then I was in the throes of selling my business in any case at that stage, and we decided to move to Europe. And he came from a single parent family, only his mom, and you know, she had a secretarial job, so there was no way, and again with the greatest of respect, that would have happened. And I said to them, my present to you is, we're going to give it 3 years, and you don't have to worry about the thing. We will get there, and we will race, you know. So I understand the sacrifice that people make to do that for you. Now, you mentioned your parents and everybody, and you often refer to your sister and to your girlfriend, and the people around. So, who all are your support structure? And of course, the dogs and the pig at the farm and everybody. So, who make up the support structure who support you, really value?
Yeah, so obviously I have my mum. She's here with me. I guess you could say she's my taxi or chauffeur driver here in Spain. And this is her first year with me here in Europe. The last years I've had my father here with me, but obviously he worked at a really hands-on job in New Zealand, so he had to stay home. And mum, she can work from home, so it kind of made sense to, I guess you could do the old switcheroo. I guess mum wanted her boy. She wanted some cool mum and son time. But yeah, so I have my mum, I have my dad, I have my sister who's really supportive as well. Me and her were the complete opposite. Like, you could not find two more opposite children. But yet she's super supportive of me and my dreams. So yeah, that is good to have such a good sister like that. Obviously my girlfriend, she's super supportive, as a girlfriend would be, as well as her family as well. Her father Grant and her sister Emily, they're here with me in Spain at the moment as well, which is super cool. So yeah, they're currently here at the racing for the first 3 runs, I think. So yeah, that's good to have, I guess, in a way, some familiar faces to kind of make it seem like home. Obviously the grandparents, you know, the whole family, they support it, you know. I'd be at, you know, Christmas lunch or something, and, you know, the grandfather, all he wants to talk about is bikes. So yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm about it. Obviously sponsors in New Zealand, local sponsors. I got, you know, Bedpost, they're sponsors for me in New Zealand, as well as the Bertman Road Challenge. So that's quite cool, having you know, them branded on my leathers and stuff like that. So yeah, it's that whole inner support circle. And I guess one that I guess you have to mention is Rookies Cup. Obviously Rookies Cup is you don't have to pay. All you have to do is get to every track, get to the racing. So having been in that for 3 years, that's taken a huge, I guess you could say, weight off me and my family's shoulders, knowing, you know, having that series, as it's a free series. You're supplied with all the gear, the bikes. All you have to do is accommodation and flights and travel. So having that the last 3 years had really helped us. But then again, it was also like, right at the end of the first year, if you don't get another year, that's it. Your career is finished before it's really even started. So you have that sort of pressure. So that's why every result counts. Even, I'm only 17 years old, but the amount of pressure that you have on you is huge. So yeah.
This mic auto mutes after a while, which because I think it's the anti-parrot switch. You say you're only 17 years old, and of course, under a few years ago, you could have already been in Moto3 at this age, but a series of very tragic accidents, a few of which involved riders that I'd had interactions with, made for a shift in the rules, and the minimum age got shifted up, and actually somebody that like Alonso slipped in just under the flag, because of an existing ruling. So obviously, with people are starting to take notice now. If you've had a podium in Junior GP, make no mistake, you are a representative rider, so people will start taking notice. So how do you see your plans for the future? Do you think that next year we'll see the shift to Moto3? And I take it you will want to stay with prototype racing. You wouldn't want to go the production route like some other riders then.
Yeah, for me, my dream is to be MotoGP World Champions. Obviously, that means racing on MotoGP prototype bikes, as you said. So the goal for this year isn't necessarily a certain position in Junior GP. It's not necessarily to go out and win every race. It's to secure a ride for World Championship next year. Obviously, that's going to take good results. And starting the season off with a podium is definitely the right way to go about it. But I know this game. I've only been in it for 3 years, but I know that nothing is yours until you've, I guess you could say, you put the ink on the contract or whatever, however you like to put it. So for me, it's just going out doing my best every race, and as I said, that's all I can do. I know if I do the right thing, if I do my job, then the rest will come. So it's important to, I guess you say, stay grounded, stay humble and stay focused. That's the big thing I'm focusing on, because it's very easy after a podium to be like, right, everything's done, all these teams, they'll want me, but I know that's not how it works. And I know as someone, I just need to put myself in the best place possible, and doing that's just, doing, the best job that I can, just making sure I'm consistent, being, how can you say it, being the best me, and making someone that the team see potential in. And I mean, as you see, there's always, a new wave of riders coming in. So I just need to put myself in that position. And it's good knowing that obviously next year I'll be 18 before the end of this year. So I'll be old enough to move up. So I know that I'm kind of in that window. So right now I just need to, as I said, do my job, and just hope that the rest comes with it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing your job well so far. We had another comment from Kevin Tyra. It's a South African, so you're being watched from South Africa. Now, Kevin has an interesting history. He's the top man of the KTM race team, motocross racing in South Africa at the moment. He was a mechanic in our team, in my team, when I was in Belgium, when the team was called Bruforce Racing. And by the way, he worked with a Spanish rider. He worked with a rider by the name of Jonathan Barragan. And I spoke to Max Kilis's management company, by the way, and who's Mark Marquez's company. And I said to the guy, Jimmy, who is my contact point, I said, I had a Spanish rider, two in my team, actually, Alvaro Lozano and Jonathan Barragan. He says, Barragan is one of his best friends. They are great friends. So yeah, any case, so that's Kevin. Thank you, Kevin, for the shout out there. Any case, you're saying that now obviously the musical chairs start early in the season already. I mean, Fermin Aldeguer was signed already early in the year for next year, and it was a very close thing, or you already had a MotoGP seat this year. So but then the Gian Antonio got a reprieve, and he's using his reprieve very, very well, by the way. Do you have any management that looks after you, that looks for opportunities and sees that they can place you in a good position to get a contract like that?
Yeah, so I have one-on-one management. So and Gary Nadal, he's actually the team owner for AGR, the team I race in. So he's worked with lots of riders and stuff like that in the past. So it's just, making sure I get my name out there, shaking the right hands and, talking to the right people. But obviously you have to have a manager, you have to have the right management. And, I trust him, he trusts me, and yeah, he sees potential in me. Obviously, having spent the last few years with his team, it's been a great honor to be, I guess you could say, under his banner. And yeah, fingers crossed that we can achieve great things together. But yeah, obviously, the musical chairs starts very early in the season, and I think going into this season, that was a big thing for me. I knew that previous years going into the first round has been like, oh yeah, okay, just have a solid first round. Nothing crazy. It's whatever. Just do your best, and yeah, we'll work it out. We'll start making some progress at round 2. Whereas this year, I said, look, if I want to be, fighting for those seats in World Championship, I need to have, solid first round from the get-go. Because all the time, teams are watching World Championship. Everyone knows that, it's Junior GPs pretty much really you're on the exact same bikes as in World Championship. So as I said, I just need to do my job. And obviously the better you do, the more chance you get. Obviously it helps if you win the championship or if you do stuff like that. But I know that, if I do my job correctly, I know at the end of the season, hopefully that will look like a World Championship ride. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's that's really well spoken. And having said that, you do present yourself well, so that's very important. And just pulling back to your selection to Rookies Cup, where you said you were up against the Italians and the Spanish. In a sense, it might have counted in your favor because they have to keep the politics straight of it as well, because KTM has distribution in various areas of the world, and it is really important to them to include riders from different areas in the world, which is, of course, he's super talented, but of course it played a role in somebody like Hakim Danish and Rocher Moodley and they deserve it. They fully deserve it. But what I said is there would be a Spanish or an Italian rider that would have been good enough for that spot, but the consideration goes to make a geographic spread. And maybe for you, and to some extent, it's the same with World Championship racing. You had heard the talk now about Roberts with the American team, that MotoGP wants an American rider. They are desperate for an American rider. Obviously he's leading the Moto2 championship now, so he's writing his own check at the moment, but with an American team in there, and I'm really hoping that this will count in your favor. All right, now having said all that, who are the sponsors? You've mentioned some personal support and your management and whatever. So who are the sponsors who have helped you? And what do you think are the opportunities to get support from New Zealand with increased media attention? Because the media is now starting to take notice, and maybe there will be some support. Maybe a wealthy rugby player will help you. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to have a rugby player helping me. I love rugby. I used to play that before I was, away racing bikes. But as I said, I have Bedpost New Zealand, which is they've supported me for a very long time. They love watching the races. There's one race in New Zealand that they always come to because it's pretty local for them in Auckland. So it's always nice to catch up with them. I guess you could say annually. They're always watching the races from in Europe and stuff. So they're a great bunch to have, on board. Obviously supporting me, and as I mentioned, Barrett Monroe Challenge. yeah, having Brit Challenge, I think that speaks for itself. You know, coming from Invercargill, you know, we call it Brit country. You know, being able to represent that on the world stage, you know, having them on my leathers and stuff like that, it's quite a nice feeling having a little bit of home with you. It's, you know, you don't have to look very far to, you know, look for motivation and stuff like that. I've got, you know, sponsors like Road Safety Southland, which is it's also a local sponsor for me from Invercargill, where I'm from. And yeah, all those sorts of like local sponsors, I love having those, you know, because a lot of them, you know, they're friends, you know, I get along with them really well personally, as you'd expect. And, you know, they're always watching the races and stuff like that. But then you got, you know, the team sponsors, like we're sponsored by Kabuto, which is a Japanese helmet company. You know, they're, as you can see, the helmets, that side, there's that side, yeah, that side. They're a helmet company which sponsors the team. So, you know, all those sponsors. But as I mentioned before, this being such a financially tough sport, demanding sport, obviously the more sponsors you can have, the better. So, yeah, that's what we're working towards. I'm always, you know, trying to make myself open to people, trying to, I guess you could say, sell myself. But in New Zealand, I mean, in the past, we've had, you know, motocrossers like Josh Coppins, Ben Townley. We've had, you know, road racers like Simon Crafer, Aaron Slipe, Graham Crosby, Hugh Anderson, those guys. But as of late, there hasn't really been, you know, anything. So I'm almost trying to have to, you know, sell the sport before I sell myself. And that's extremely difficult. So when you come to a place like here in Spain or here in Europe, where, you know, motorcycling is on the same level as, I guess you could say, rugby is in New Zealand, it's it's a lot easier to, I guess, get out there. But then again, it's also like you're the New Zealander, you know, no one really knows who you are. So there's also that aspect that also makes it difficult to sell yourself. But with podiums and stuff like that, you become more well known. I mean, I think it was in Valencia last year, I had some random photographer come up to me and he said, "Hey, Cormac," and I'm like, "I've never met this guy before." I'm like, "Oh, how do you know me?" Like, and stuff like that. And he's like, "Oh, I know you from your blonde hair." I'm like, "Oh, you know, the blonde hair is making I guess you could say, like a persona, like, you know, Rossi with the Doctor, or Mark Marquez, you know, being, you know, one of the best riders of all time, you know, that sort of stuff." So, I mean, you know, Mac Attack, that's my nickname. People, that's what they call me. The team, they call me Puya Loco, which in turn translates to Crazy Kiwi. Wherever you look on my helmets, you have the Kiwi on top of it, you know, as a New Zealander. So, I guess being a New Zealander also adds a really good point of difference. As you said, you know, it's the passport. It makes me stand out. You know, I'm the only one here doing it. So I think in that aspect, it's also an advantage. It's definitely a lot easier to stick out in that sense than it is if I was a Spanish person, because I'm not the only Spanish person. I've got, you know, hundreds of thousands of other people, you know, wanting to be in my place. So yeah, I think that definitely helps being a Kiwi.
Yeah, you speak about the Spanish, and I was reading the other day, like Alex Crivier, in the time of McDowan, they were teammates, and Crivier was, I think, the first Spaniard to win a 500 GP, and then came Theta Gibernau, and then came like the gates opened and the flood came, and then it became like just all Spain. And that comes to what you've said. You first have to sell the sport, because once the sport had been sold in Spain, not that you have to, because I mean, we were at the motocross race and we were staying at the village, and these kids were coming through the village on their scooters like insane. You know, it's like so fast, and I'm thinking, whoa, we're going to pick them up in 4 pieces at the end of the hill. But in any case, so they have got that in them. But when people like Crivier and Gibernau and others, and that sold the sport. And now, of course, today at the GP, they were talking about nearly 300,000 people. So go and tell that to a rugby person, and they will understand what you are saying, you know. So so that's that. Now, talking about selling yourself, as we wrap up, people want to get to know about you. Where do they find out about you? Where are your social media portals, and where do people get to know about you?
Yeah, so for me, it's pretty simple. Instagram, Facebook, you know, all of your usual social media stuff at Cormac Racing. So there you can find all my updates and all of that sort of stuff. And yeah, you can mingle with some other Kiwis, I guess you could say, in the comment section. That's something different, I don't know. But yeah, I do all of my social media posts. And one thing I try to do, I always try to almost, treat it as if I'm just talking to my friend. When I write, say, a social media post about the race, some people look at me and like, nah, your mum does that. You don't write and all these paragraphs and stuff. I'm like, no, I love doing it. It's also good for me. It's almost like a reflection process, getting it right after race. Don't get me wrong. Some races you enjoy writing more than others. Like I definitely enjoyed writing the podium post compared to, say, one where I had a crash or something like that. But yeah, you can find me at Cormac Racing on Instagram and Facebook are my two main ones. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and I enjoy following your social media, and I've been following you for a while. I enjoy that, and I can immerse myself in it, and I think your readers as well, because it's a nice, chatty and conversational thing. So that is wonderful. Now, you mentioned the Kiwi. I actually mentioned the Kiwi part in the description of the video, because us being great rugby rivals but respectful rugby rivals.
Yes.
I love that, and respectful cricket rivals, and you've had the dusting of us in the cricket, so there's something there. Now you mentioned something to Meke, which is on your helmet. So tell us about that, just.
Yeah, so Tumeki on the back of my helmet. That Tumeki in our language practically translates to too much. Obviously, South Africans, they have slang. Kiwis, we have slang. Aussies, they have slang. But too much is like, you're like, too much, bro. Like, yeah, you're cool. That sort of stuff. Like, say after a race, mum will come up to me, fist bump me, say Tumeki. You've done I guess it just translates to good job, or no, that's pretty cool. It's it's cool having, I guess, a bit of, as I said, having a bit of Kiwi back from home on my helmet. Last year I had my primary school motto, which was kia kaha, kia mai, kia manawa nui, which is the New Zealand language, te reo Māori. So that translates to be strong, be brave, and I think be loyal or something like that. So that was something cool to have on the back of my helmet, because obviously, every time you put your helmet on, you put it on from backwards. So before you go out on track, that's the last thing you see. So yeah, it's cool having, a bit of New Zealand. I mean, I have a Kiwi plushie that I always have to bring to the track. My mechanic last year, Sergi, he'd always try to phone me up before the races. So he'd always be like, you need to go faster, and stuff like that. And I'm like, mate, this is the Kiwi, but yeah.
Tell me, and do you promise us that when you win your first Junior GP race or your first Moto3 podium, that you will perform a haka?
I don't know. It's been a really long time since I was at school, and I mean, I could probably relearn the haka, because fun fact, I used to be the leader of it when I went to school.
Oh, really?
Almost like I kind of have to, isn't it? I mean, who knows? I remember mum and dad, they always used to joke about if I got a win when they were both here, that they'd bust out into a haka. But who knows? Maybe you might see a haka at the end of the year. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, if it means that I have to win a race to do that, then I sure hope I get to do a haka. But yeah, we'll see. I'll have to study up before Easter rule, hopefully.
All right. Well, that it's been, and I must say, I think we've broken a record now. This is the first Velospitty interview, and I've had interviews with multiple riders. I did one with some Hungarian riders that included some road races and some motocrosses, and we've never crossed the hour threshold. And this time we did, and I didn't feel like it was long. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope our viewers did too. So thank you very, very much for joining us. Now, what's going to happen is I've uploaded the music video that I've done for you onto YouTube. It's unpublished now, but I will set it public right after this interview and send you the link. Awesome. I will also send you the actual video. So if you want, you can upload it straight to your own socials as well, right? So then people can share in your memories. So Thank you so very much. It was most insightful and very enjoyable,
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure to talk bikes. There's nothing better being a motorcycle racer talking about bikes and being able to share my story. So, yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Okay, well, then for our viewers, there's a lot of racing coming up. The Motocross World Championship resumes next weekend in Agda in Portugal. So look out on Youth Force Racing for some live stream links on that and other races, and also for some reports on the weekend, because it's a tough job doing it all on the Sunday. So it comes to in the week. And we greet our guest, Cormac. And then until next time, it's me, Tina Snell, signing off. And we're playing out with Cormac's delightful little video.